That evening of 12th November 1996 had started like an ordinary day, but then something happened which recorded the name of Charkhi Dadri forever in the pages of history. This small village of Haryana, Charkhi Dadri, where time seemed to have stopped, people lived and their children were busy in daily work, women were playing, women were doing household work, and elders were sitting in the shade of trees. But something else was happening in the sky. Saudi Arabia's Flight 763 and Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907 were both on the same plane. It was flying on the route 64, but what happened, which no one could have even imagined, there was a huge explosion and both the planes collided in the sky. Balls of fire and clouds of smoke covered the sky. The people of Charkhi Dadri started burning in the sky. Seeing the debris falling, there was panic everywhere. People came out of their homes to see that horrific scene. This accident was going to shock not only Charkhi Dadri but the entire country. A total of 349 people lost their lives, and it was a shock to the world. It became the deadliest mid-air collision accident. Even today, the people of Charkhi Dadri remember that fateful evening and pay tribute to those who lost their lives. Charkhi Dadri, a small quiet village, is today known as a sad chapter in aviation history. Let's know the story behind this incident and understand how this accident happened and what lessons can be learned from it. This is the hidden story of the Charkhi Dadri incident in Indira Gandhi International Airport, New Delhi. It was evening time in air traffic control. It was a very busy time for the tower. Passengers were saying goodbye to their family and friends and were going for boarding at Terminal Number 2. VK Duda, Senior Air Traffic Controller, was about to end his shift. He was responsible for all the people coming and going to Delhi Airport. Guiding the planes at 6:03 p.m., Saudi Airlines Flight 763, under the command of Captain Khalid Al-Shubay, pilot Nazir Khan, and flight engineer Ahmed Idris, moves towards the runway. The plane was to return from Delhi to Saudi Arabia, in which it had to make a total of the journey of 2,700 kilometers was to be completed in 8 hours. There were 23 crew members and 312 passengers on board, which included most of the Indian laborers and hospitality workers who were going to work in Saudi Arabia. Hospitality workers are those employees who work in hotels, restaurants, and apart from this, there were also some Muslim pilgrims in this plane who were taking a flight to Mecca. At the same time, Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907 was moving from Shymkent in Kazakhstan towards Delhi. A total of 37 people were in this plane. Those on board included 5 cockpit crew, 5 other crew members who were probably flight attendants and cargo handlers, and 27 businessmen who were coming to India to buy cheap clothes. The captain of the plane was 44-year-old Alexander Alexandrovich Chupar, and the first officer was 37-year-old Ermak Kaz. Hamedovich Jangir and 41-year-old radio operator Igor Alexievich were the reps who maintained constant contact between the aircraft and the ground. All the cockpit crew were highly experienced. The flight from Shymkent to Delhi was only 3 hours and 10 minutes from takeoff. Only 35 minutes later, the pilot of Flight 1907 contacted Delhi ATC and informed that everything was normal at an altitude of 33,000 feet. The route of Flight 97 was not completely straight because in 1996, the skies of India were controlled in a 50-50 ratio by civilians. It was divided between airspace and military airspace, which meant that civilian aircraft could not go into military airspace, and similarly, military aircraft could not go into civilian airspace. The aircraft had to first reach the point named Loon, which was located 327 kilometers west of Indira Gandhi International Airport. All the planes coming and going from Delhi had to use this point called Lanka so that the planes could be prevented from going into the military airspace. At 2 o'clock, the plane coming from Kazakhstan reaches a point called Lanka, after which Delhi Approach Control, which was responsible for the flights coming and going to Delhi, took them to a height of 2,000 feet, and after 5 minutes at 6:28 minutes, they reached a height of 18,000 feet. And here Saudi Airlines Flight 763 takes off at the same time from Indira Gandhi International Airport and starts moving towards a point called Lanka. Shortly after takeoff, the pilot of Flight 763 approaches Delhi Approach Controller. The thing to be understood here is that they are present in the same air corridor which Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907 is using to descend towards Delhi Airport. A corridor is a path specifically designed for aircraft, so that they can fly safely and systematically, because at that time there was only one air corridor for incoming and outgoing flights in Delhi, so the normal procedure in Delhi was that the flights going from Delhi were diverted to Delhi. The controller's intention was that the Saudi and Kazakh aircraft should also pass in the same manner. Both the aircraft are currently present in the same airspace, yet the probability of their collision is once in 100 lakhs, which means that if there are 100 lakh flights, then only one of them would have the possibility of collision. But still, this collision does happen. But how could the crew of Saudi Airlines Flight 763 contact VK Data a few minutes after takeoff? VK Data at 6322 gives clearance to Flight 763 to descend to flight level 100 or 10,000 feet. 3 minutes later, at 6:03, Kazna Airlines contacts VK Data, radio operator of Flight 1907. VK Data, they give clearance to Flight 1907 to descend to a height of 15,000 feet. At this time, Saudi 763 was around 1,000 feet, and they once again contact VK Data to go up, and VK Data gives them clearance from 1,000 feet to 14,000 feet. On 6:38, Saudi Flight 763 reaches a height of 14,000 feet, and Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907 descends to a height of 15,000. Both these airplanes are flying in the same airspace in opposite directions. At this time, there is a difference of only 1,000 feet between these two planes. VK Data gives warning to Kazakh 1907 and tells about Saudi 763, and he warns both the planes to maintain their position. VK Data was thinking that they will pass safely without colliding with each other, but at 6:04, what no one could have imagined happened. The wing of Saudi Flight 763 hits the rear of the Kazakhstan plane. Both these planes are 110 kilometers before the airport Charkhi Dadri. 4 kilometers above the ground, they collide with each other, due to which both the planes go out of control. After the collision, both the planes completely break in the sky. Due to the falling of burning debris, a huge mass of fire and smoke falls on the ground. Clouds engulf the quiet village of Charkhi Dadri in Haryana, suddenly engulfed in an atmosphere of fear and chaos. VK Dutta was keeping an eye on his radar screen as he did every day. Suddenly something appeared on his radar screen, which took his breath away. Saudi Flight 763 and Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907 suddenly disappear from radar. A few seconds later, their radio suddenly rang, and they heard a voice in Arabic meaning, "God forgive me, I testify that there is no other God but Allah." These were the last words spoken by the captain of Saudi Arabian Airlines Flight 763. After this, nothing was heard on the radio. In deep panic, VK Dutta repeatedly called Saudi and Kazakh aircraft 7637 report, but got no response at 2,000 feet. A few miles away, the pilot of a U.S. Air Force plane at an altitude of 500 feet saw a flash of orange light moving through the cloud and then 2 burning objects falling downwards as emergency services approached. Indira Gandhi International Airport. When I reached the crash site, 110 kilometers west, thousands of people were already there searching for survivors. Burning debris was scattered over an area about 7 kilometers long, with the Saudi Airlines plane at one end and Kazakhstan at the other. The airline's plane had fallen on the ground at the other end. The Saudi Airlines plane had fallen at a high speed with its nose, which created a huge crater near the village. There was burnt debris spread all around in the fields, making it difficult to even identify which aircraft does it belong to. Due to the collision, the tail section and additional pieces of the engine of Saudi Airlines were spread to a distance of 4 kilometers. Unlike the Saudi aircraft, the Kazakhstan Airlines plane hit the ground in a flat position in which the front part, i.e. the cockpit, was completely damaged. The middle part was intact, and the rear part was almost completely burnt in the fire. In the initial confusion, the villagers said that 3 or 4 people were left, but the report proved to be false, as the rescue team did not find anyone alive at the accident site. The media also, false reports of survivors were received, but when journalists reached hospitals in Delhi, there were no admissions. In fact, when morning broke over the devastated fields of Charkhi Dadri, it became clear that all 312 passengers and crew of the Saudi Airlines and none of all 37 people on board the Kazakhstan Airlines plane survived the crash over Charkhi Dadri, taking the total number of deaths to 349. The collision became India's worst air crash and the deadliest mid-air collision in history, and the 3rd deadliest air crash of all time. The Charkhi Dadri accident still holds all these titles. A few hours after the incident, when the investigation agency reached the crash site, they got to see a horrifying scene. The magnitude of the accident was clearly visible at every step. The agency's experts immediately started searching for the black box. The black box is an important device which records all the technical data of the aircraft and the sound of the cockpit. Finding it was extremely necessary so that the causes of the accident could be ascertained. After the accident, the role of VK Duda, who was on duty as an air traffic controller at that time, was naturally suspected. The investigating agencies interrogated him several times, and radar recordings and radio communications were obtained. Dada told that he had tried to contact Saudi Flight 763 and Kazakhstan Flight 1907 several times but did not get any response. This incident was an incident which shocked not only the entire world, but also India's another blemish on the aircraft's already poor safety record. Accusations immediately erupted between Indian Kazakhs and Saudi officials over who was responsible for the crash. The incident highlighted India's weak aviation infrastructure and the poor safety of former Soviet pilots. Questions were raised on English language skills, but what was the truth? Who collided with whom, and why could it have been prevented? Answering these questions was the job of a special investigation board led by Honorable Justice R.C. Lahoti of Delhi High Court. Their investigation revealed some. The basic answer was given, but Justice Lahoti ignored and left many important aspects unclear. The first and most important question was which of the two aircraft deviated from the altitude specified by the ATC. It was clear from the air traffic control recording that controller VK Dada's there was no mistake. They had instructed the Kazakh aircraft to remain at 15,000 feet and the Saudi aircraft to remain at 14,000 feet. So for the two aircraft to collide with each other, one or both of the aircraft would have had to deviate from their prescribed altitude. The data from the black box had to be decoded, which proved to be a difficult task as there was much controversy over where and by whom the recorder should be opened. Ultimately, the Saudi Airlines flight recorder was analyzed by the British Air Accidents Investigation Branch in the UK, while the Kazakhstan Airlines recorder was taken to the Interstate Aviation Committee facility in Russia. Data from both flight recorders revealed that the collision occurred at 14,000 feet. The Saudi jet never deviated from the altitude reported by VK Dutta. While the Kazakh plane collided with it, the question arises that why did the Kazakh plane descend below the stated altitude, i.e., 15,000 feet? Kazakhstan Airlines Company argued that due to bad weather, the plane had to descend 1,000 feet below its scheduled altitude. But this theory was easily dismissed because there was no storm or disturbed weather that evening. According to experts, the altimeter installed in the Kazakh aircraft was displaying chronic high despite continuous descent, due to which the pilot they thought that they were at the specified height, and by the time they came to know about the correct height, it was too late. There were many reasons behind this accident, some of which were very simple and some were chaotic and complex. Let us understand the reasons one by one in detail and try to know that if this accident could have been stopped, then how and why this accident was not stopped. The first reason is the use of the same airspace in India in 1996 by military, and the airspace for civilian aircraft was divided in half, due to which the planes coming and going to Delhi had to pass through this single corridor, due to which the planes coming towards Delhi were asked to stay above, and the planes coming from Delhi were asked to stay above. Departing planes were asked to stay low. Had there been separate corridors for planes coming and going from Delhi, at that time this tragic accident would never have happened. Second reason, lack of SSR at Delhi Airport. SSR at Delhi Airport. That is, there was no secondary surveillance radar that provides information about the altitude and precise position of the aircraft to the air traffic controller. The absence of SSR meant that the air traffic control had to rely only on the information given by the pilots if at Delhi Airport. Had SSR been in place at that time, VK Duda would have noticed the continuous landing of Kazakh aircraft. Had they come to know about it, and they would have informed them on time, and thus this accident could have been stopped before time. The third reason was the absence of tilt system in the planes at that time. Traffic collision avoidance was done to avoid collision in the planes. The system, that is, TICAS, was not engaged. TICAS is a system that helps in preventing collisions between aircraft. It gives warnings to the ships to avoid each other. When one plane comes near the other, TICAS gives warning and advises them to take appropriate steps to avoid each other. Had the TICA system been installed in the planes at that time, the pilots of both the planes would have received warning before the collision so that they could have taken appropriate action. The lack of TICA increased the possibility of an accident. Fourth reason, Kazakhstan Airlines radio operator gave wrong altitude. Kazakhstan Airlines radio operator gave wrong altitude to the pilot. The job of the radio operator is to give the pilot the correct altitude and direction. The pilot can rely on this information to guide the aircraft. The radio operator fails to properly understand the instructions given by VK Data and tells the wrong altitude to the first officer who was flying the aircraft, due to which the aircraft collides with the Saudi Airlines aircraft. It is said that the knowledge of English language of the pilots and crew of Kazakhstan Airlines was weak, due to which the pilots and crew could not understand the instructions of the air traffic control properly, which led to misunderstanding in communication. And this misunderstanding became a major reason for the accident. All these reasons after this accident, Airports Authority of India made several improvements in air safety. Separate airspace was set aside for military and civilian aircraft. SSR was installed at Delhi Airport. Tika system was made mandatory in aircraft, and special attention was paid to the English language of the pilots. These improvements are aimed at preventing such incidents from happening in the future. If you liked this video,